We're counting down the 10 most misleading honey brands sold in America, where bottles labeled pure or raw sometimes hide cheap syrups, missing pollen, and processing that strips away natural benefits. From budget staples to surprising premium labels, each one exposes gaps in regulation and testing. Which brand tops the list for deception? Let's begin with number 10. Walmart's Great Value Honey sits on shelves in nearly every American town, often labeled raw. That promise led one consumer to send samples to a lab, convinced the label hid more processing than it revealed. The lab results sparked a lawsuit, with claims that Great Value Honey had been heated and filtered so extensively that calling it raw misled shoppers. The case never reached a jury. In federal court, the judge ruled that the evidence, including lab numbers and chemical markers, could not prove the honey was adulterated or that Walmart had violated any binding federal rule. The court pointed to a crucial gap. There is no enforceable national definition for raw honey in the United States. Without clear federal standards, labels like raw or pure become matters of interpretation, not law. The Food and Drug Administration offers guidance but does not require stores to verify how their honey is processed. For millions of shoppers, that leaves the real meaning of raw up to each brand, and it leaves room for confusion at the checkout. Trader Joe's Manuka honey commands a premium price. It is often displayed as a specialty import, with the promise of 100% New Zealand Manuka on its label. That claim drew sharp scrutiny in federal court, where a class action lawsuit challenged whether the honey inside matched the promise on the jar. Independent laboratory tests submitted as evidence showed Manuka pollen content averaging between 57 and 63%, far from the full purity suggested by the label. The rest of the pollen came from cheaper, more common flowers, raising questions about what shoppers were actually paying for. In court filings, plaintiffs argued that the label led customers to believe they were buying honey made entirely from Manuka nectar, a rare and highly valued floral source. Trader Joe's defended its product by pointing out that bees naturally forage across many plants, and that 100% New Zealand Manuka could reasonably be read as pure honey from New Zealand, mostly Manuka. The federal judge agreed, dismissing the case and noting that, under current law, the label was not legally deceptive. But the lawsuit left a lasting record. Even in the specialty aisle, scientific testing can reveal gaps between what is promised and what is delivered. For consumers, pollen analysis remains one of the few tools to check if premium honey is truly what it claims to be. Target's Good and Gather Honey became the subject of a Florida lawsuit that put state food law to the test. At the heart of the complaint was the way this honey was processed, filtered so thoroughly that not a single grain of pollen remained. Under Florida's honey standard, only minimal filtration is allowed to remove unavoidable debris. Pollen is the natural marker of a honey's floral source and origin, and it is supposed to stay. Plaintiffs argued that by stripping out all pollen, Target's private label honey no longer met the legal definition of honey in the state. The lawsuit described a product that looked clear and shelf-stable, but had lost the very features that make honey traceable and authentic. In court filings, the absence of pollen was presented as evidence of excessive processing, something not just academic, but a violation of consumer trust and state law. The case highlighted how state standards, unlike federal guidelines, can give consumers a legal foothold against ultra-filtered mass-market honey. For shoppers, the story of Good and Gather from Target is a warning. Even trusted store brands can run afoul of local food laws when shortcuts are taken in the name of clarity and shelf life. Nice Honey from Walgreens, a familiar sight in pharmacy aisles, stands out for what it lacks. In 2011, Food Safety News sent dozens of honey samples from major retailers to the Pollenology Laboratory at Texas A&M University. Every single sample collected from drugstores, including Walgreens, contained no detectable pollen, not a trace. This was not a one-off result. The lab's findings showed that 100% of pharmacy honey tested had been filtered so thoroughly that its natural pollen fingerprint was erased. Pollen is not just a speck in the jar. It is how scientists trace a honey's floral source and geographic origin. Without it, there is no way to confirm where the honey came from or what flowers the bees visited. Ultrafiltration, the process behind this, strips out more than just pollen. It removes enzymes, minerals, and other trace compounds that give honey its unique properties. What is left is a sweet, clear liquid, marketed as wellness in a bottle, but missing the very qualities that define real honey. Food safety experts warn that by removing all pollen, producers also erase the only reliable marker that separates genuine honey from a generic sugar syrup. For shoppers seeking natural remedies or immune support, drugstore honey like Nice may offer little more than sweetness, with none of the benefits that come from real, minimally processed honey. Walgreens is not alone, but the lab-confirmed absence of pollen in its Nice brand makes it a cautionary tale for anyone who assumes that pharmacy shelves guarantee authenticity. Publix, a household name across the Southeast, faces more than just consumer complaints over its private label honey. In Florida, a group of shoppers filed a lawsuit accusing Publix of selling honey that has been so heavily filtered that all traces of pollen are removed. The legal complaint points to ultrafiltration, a process that strips honey of its natural fingerprint and leaves behind a product that cannot be traced back to any flower or region. For consumers, this means the jar labeled orange blossom or clover could contain a blend of anything, with no way to verify its true source. But the consequences stretch beyond the checkout aisle. Small beekeepers in Florida and neighboring states have reported losing contracts with local stores as cheaper imported honey, often processed to crystal clarity, floods the market. One third-generation beekeeper described sitting on thousands of pounds of raw honey, unable to sell at a price that matches the ultra-filtered imports. When store brands turn to industrial suppliers offering honey at rock-bottom prices, local producers are squeezed out, sometimes forced to scale back operations or leave the business entirely. Plaintiffs in the Florida case argue that Publix's choices do not just mislead shoppers, they undermine the livelihoods of American beekeepers who cannot compete with anonymous blends from overseas. The ripple effect of ultra-filtered, mass-market honey is not just a matter of lost flavor or missing pollen. It is a story of domestic producers pushed aside by a system that rewards opacity over authenticity. Signature Select is the private label for Safeway and Albertsons. It lines grocery shelves with bottles labeled raw and unfiltered. The promise is familiar: natural honey, untouched by heavy processing, sold at a price that feels accessible. But for shoppers hoping those words guarantee authenticity, the reality is less certain. In the United States, there is no binding federal standard for what counts as raw or unfiltered honey. The FDA offers only guidance, not regulation, leaving each brand to define these terms as it sees fit. That gap gives supermarket chains broad leeway in how they market honey, even when large-scale production often includes steps like fine filtration and heating. These processes strip out pollen, enzymes, and other natural components, leaving a product that looks pristine but may have lost the very qualities consumers seek in raw honey. Consumer watchdog groups have criticized this practice for years, noting that supermarket honeys frequently remain crystal clear and liquid for months, signs of heavy processing, not gentle bottling. Without pollen, there is no reliable way to trace floral or geographic origin. With no legal definition, the phrase raw and unfiltered can be used on honey that has been processed to industrial standards. For shoppers, the label becomes a matter of trust rather than a guarantee. Industry experts warn that unless brands provide independent certification or transparent sourcing, claims of raw and unfiltered honey should be viewed with skepticism. In the absence of federal enforcement, the burden falls on consumers to look past the label and ask how much processing actually happens before that honey reaches the store. Kroger's honey bottles line the shelves of American supermarkets, bearing the word "pure" in bold print. But for food scientists, the real test of quality is not on the label. It is in the chemistry. One marker stands out: HMF, short for 5-hydroxymethylfurfuryl. It is a compound that forms when honey is heated above natural hive temperatures. According to the Codex Alimentarius, which guides international honey standards, HMF should not exceed 40 milligrams per kilogram in retail honey. High HMF is a red flag for overheating, a process that strips away the delicate enzymes, vitamins, and antioxidants that shoppers expect from real honey. Heat may make honey easier to bottle and keep it liquid on the shelf, but it comes at a cost. The more honey is heated and filtered, the less it resembles what bees create in the hive. Industry panels have flagged supermarket honeys, including those from major chains like Kroger, for elevated HMF, and they warn that aggressive processing leaves behind a lifeless sweetener. While the FDA does not enforce a binding HMF limit, international standards treat high levels as evidence of poor handling. For consumers, the science is clear. When honey is processed to industrial clarity, the nutritional and natural qualities are often the first to disappear. What remains is a product that may be shelf-stable, but lacks the fingerprint of real honey. In the search for authenticity, chemistry tells the truth that labels often obscure. The 365 Organic Honey line at Whole Foods arrives on shelves with the trust of a USDA organic seal and a price tag to match. For many shoppers, that green and white label suggests a product that is both pure and minimally processed. Yet the reality behind organic honey in the United States is far more complicated. Unlike organic produce or dairy, there is no specific USDA standard for what counts as organic honey. Instead, the USDA accepts certifications from foreign agencies, often based in countries like Brazil or Argentina, where most imported organic honey originates. These certifiers apply broad organic guidelines, but they do not set rules for how honey is processed after harvest. This gap leaves room for practices that would surprise most customers. Imported organic honey, even when certified, can be pasteurized or ultra-filtered before it reaches American stores. Pasteurization involves heating honey to high temperatures, a step that destroys beneficial enzymes, vitamins, and antioxidants. Ultrafiltration removes pollen, the natural fingerprint that proves a honey's floral and geographic origin. Without pollen, there is no way to verify if the honey truly comes from the place or flowers promised on the label. Whole Foods markets 365 Organic as a premium, health-conscious choice, but the organic seal does not guarantee that the honey is raw, unfiltered, or even domestic. The lack of a honey-specific organic standard means products can be labeled organic while undergoing the same industrial processing as cheaper, conventional brands. For shoppers seeking true raw honey, the organic label alone is not enough. What is left is a product that may check the right boxes for certification, but fails to deliver the qualities that define real, unadulterated honey. This disconnect between label and reality erodes confidence, especially when it comes from a retailer known for setting higher standards. Soo Bee honey carries a legacy that stretches back more than a century. Founded in 1921, the Soo Honey Association grew into one of America's most recognized honey brands, trusted by generations for its familiar label and claims of purity. But in recent years, Soo Bee's reputation has come under fire, not from a single scandal, but from the way the global honey trade has changed around it. Consumer lawsuits and investigative reports have scrutinized whether Sue Bee's honey is truly traceable to American hives, or if it has become another casualty of a system built on opacity. Court records and consumer complaints have accused Sue Bee of masking the origin of some of its honey by removing pollen, an essential marker that scientists use to verify where honey comes from. Without pollen, it is nearly impossible to confirm floral or geographic origin, opening the door for blending with cheaper imports. Critics argue that this is not just a technical issue, it is a deliberate move that allows honey from countries with weaker standards or even tainted with banned antibiotics to slip into the United States market under a trusted domestic brand. Operation Honeygate, a federal investigation launched in 2013, exposed a vast network of honey laundering schemes. Importers were caught relabeling Chinese honey as products of India or Vietnam to dodge tariffs and avoid detection. Some shipments tested positive for illegal antibiotics, raising real health concerns for American consumers. While Sue Bee was not indicted in these cases, the investigation cast a spotlight on the entire industry's vulnerability, including large cooperatives that rely on both domestic and imported honey to meet demand. Industry experts and food safety advocates warn that when pollen is stripped out, there is no way for shoppers to know if the honey in their pantry is pure, or if it has been cut with cheap syrup and shipped through a maze of shell companies. For Sue Bee, a brand built on trust, the loss of transparency is more than a marketing problem. It is a fundamental challenge to what consumers believe they are buying. The story of Sue Bee reveals how even the most established names can be swept up in global supply chains that put profit and volume ahead of authenticity and safety. At Sam's Club, Members Mark honey is sold by the jug, presented as value and purity to shoppers stocking up in bulk. But behind the warehouse aisles and bargain pricing lies the most troubling pattern uncovered by food safety researchers. In a nationwide investigation, Food Safety News sent dozens of club store honey samples, Sam's Club included, to the pollenology lab at Texas A&M University. The results were stark. 77% of big box retailer honey had no detectable pollen, not a single grain. For food scientists, that is not a minor technicality. Pollen is honey's fingerprint. It reveals the flowers and countries the bees visited. When all pollen is gone, there is no way to trace where the honey came from, or even if it is honey at all. The process responsible is ultrafiltration, a method that uses heat and pressure to remove every trace of pollen and cloudiness. The result is a clear, shelf-stable sweetener that can be blended from multiple sources, including countries with a long record of honey fraud. Imports from India and Vietnam, often used to disguise Chinese honey, regularly enter the US market because ultrafiltration wipes out the evidence of origin. The scale of club store sales amplifies the risk. With each oversized bottle, the odds grow that what is inside is not just overprocessed, it may be adulterated with cheap syrups or tainted by residues banned in other countries. Senator Chuck Schumer raised the alarm in Congress, warning that illegal antibiotics found in Chinese honey could reach American consumers through this system. He called for urgent action, pointing out weak inspection rates, with just 5% of imports getting tested, which leaves the door open for contaminated and mislabeled honey to slip through. In the absence of binding federal standards, club store brands like Members Mark can legally sell ultra-filtered zero-pollen honey as pure, even as experts warn such products would not qualify as honey in Europe or under international food codes. For families buying in bulk, the risks are real but invisible. The honey looks golden and clean, but the safeguards have been stripped away. Without pollen, without traceability, and without strong oversight, Members Mark sits at the top of the list, not just for the scale of its distribution, but for the depth of its documented problems. In the world of fake honey, bigger is not better. It is just more exposure to a system that puts profit ahead of authenticity and safety. Across all 10 brands, one pattern is clear. Labels and price tags can't protect consumers from industrial shortcuts. When most honey sold in the USA is imported and ultra-filtered, purity moves from a guarantee to an exception. Fake honey isn't just a marketing problem. It is a global supply chain issue hiding in plain sight. Real food transparency starts with knowing what's in your jar. Stay vigilant and demand better.